I never sweared. I never got in trouble. I never got grounded. I never, ever remember being grounded or in trouble, ever. My mom will tell you that she doesn't ever remember me doing anything wrong. I started using drugs when I was 12 years old. I was in 7th grade.
If you do a survey and you ask what was your first exposure to alcohol or drugs, it's right about that age.
And I started smoking pot, and that was my gateway to the rest of my drug using career. By the time I was in high school, I was using cocaine and LSD, mushrooms, everything pretty much under the sun.
Why did Megan start?
I just to fit in, maybe, just to fit in with people. It felt good when I was high on whatever it was. I felt sexy, I felt powerful, I felt stronger than you do for a while. For a long time you feel empowered, but that doesn't last very long at all.
We had no idea truly though, and I thought I was a pretty sharp mom, how many drugs and how much she was abusing.
Like any drug user, Megan faced risks, huge ones, health risks, academic risks, social risks, and legal risks. But Megan wasn't thinking about those risks after she started using drugs.
My friends, my family, my values, everything changed. Everything changed. The way I treated my family, the way everything changed.
And her life was spiraling out of control.
It's indescribable to realize that any moment you're going to get a phone call. I mean, nobody in our house could pick up the phone. Every time the phone rang, we didn't know whether Megan was going to be in jail or dead or hurt. And it's the greatest fear that a parent can have.
What risks do teens face when they decide to use drugs?
It's like a bottomless pit you're falling into.
Her drug of choice wasn't marijuana or alcohol.
She was like, go ahead, pop it. She gave me a beer, chugged it down, and hey, that's how it started.
The pills he took weren't illegal. Teens are abusing drugs that can be found right in their own homes. Over-the-counter cold tablets.
We call it Skittles.
Prescription pills.
Went to their parents' medicine cabinet and just looking in there, finding what they can get high off of.
And inhalants, found under the kitchen sink or in the medicine cabinet.
Huff it, inhale it, whatever. It's just like, it's intense. It's just like an intense high.
You don't picture yourself dying off cough medicine. They don't consider it really a drug.
I'm one of the unknown statistics, so to speak.
But they are real drugs, and they are potentially lethal.
Ironically, kids think that they're safer because they're over the counter, and so they don't think that they're that dangerous. Very, very frequently, though, they'll end up in the hospital and never quite understand what happened.
So how can teens start to understand the risks involved with these over-the-counter drugs and other substances? One way is to learn how dangerous they can be, even if you try them just once.
Experimentation is really not good because you could always end up a drug addict.
They don't know how much for their body is an overdose, and they could, go into a coma and die from it.
Kelly says she started huffing because her friends were doing it.
I wanted to fit in, so I went and got a bottle of air freshener, and I huffed it. I hated the way it made me feel, but lo and behold, when I didn't have anything else to use or drink or smoke, I did it because it was around.
Soon, Kelly was huffing regularly.
I come to find out that those friends that I was making by using drugs were not my friends at all.
And once she realized that, she was able to examine drug use from an entirely different perspective.
All the cool people, which is what I was trying to be by doing all that stuff I did, all those people now are either dead or in jail. the cool people, and the ones that weren't so cool are off in college now, living life.
It's not easy to figure out in yourself, why am I doing this risky thing? Why am I hurting my brain? Why am I doing this? Maybe sometimes just it's helpful to talk to somebody and say, this is going on or that's going on with my family. You might feel less the need to go over to the medicine cabinet or to do something risky with something that was not intended for human use.
Cough and cold medicines, prescription pills, inhalants. They're just as dangerous, just as risky as traditional drugs that teens abuse. And the consequences can be just as devastating.
It makes you stupid. Like, I couldn't even put sentences together. And then you have like a hangover feeling for the rest of the day, maybe into the next day, you know, depending on when you do it. Just, you have I got a huge headache, you know, and I felt dumb.
It just feels toxic. I mean, you're high for 5 minutes and then you feel sick, you know, headaches afterwards, dehydration, you know, bad moods, all that thing that can last up to 24 hours after a use.
Every day, kids are basically killing themselves.
Marijuana isn't a drug that most teens would consider dangerous, but the effects of marijuana can be just as harmful as harder drugs.
You lose a lot of brain cells, you know.
Memory impairment. A lot of memory impairment.
Smoking it'll make you lose your memory.
Smoking marijuana can actually lower test scores. The study by researchers in California looked at 6,000 standardized test scores of teens who started smoking pot in the 10th grade. Their math scores, 15 points lower on average than teens who didn't smoke pot.
I'm not surprised math went down. I think pot is not a harmless drug. I think the marijuana today is much stronger than the marijuana was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and it's not surprising that it's literally harming kids' brain functioning.
He says chronic marijuana use can lead to social and family problems as well.
And my experience with teenagers when they're smoking a lot of pot is they tend to be very cold and zombie-like almost. There's just not a whole lot of affect there, not a whole lot of feelings there. And I think if you do that long enough, you will basically cheat yourself out of having a lot of feelings.
I have a couple friends, I actually have a lot of friends that are potheads and they smoke a lot of marijuana. I've seen their life just go down the drain. They get so addicted, it's a never-ending cycle.
If you don't care about your math scores, that's fine, but do you care about your total brain development? Do you care about your ability to connect with other people? Do you care about your ability to have some sense of self, some self-esteem? Do you care about your ability to be a friend, to be a parent, to be a good son or a good daughter to your own parents? I think pot kills you emotionally. I think it just deadens you, and that to me is the biggest danger.
When I came home the first day with my report card, it was like straight Fs, and not coming to school, and I got calls from the deans.
One of the biggest risks of marijuana is that it's a gateway to more dangerous drugs. Megan learned that. And so did Ingrid, almost too late. When she was younger, Ingrid was an excellent student. But once she reached high school,
it was a big change for me.
School wasn't important to her anymore. Instead, she started sneaking out at night and going to parties, and started doing drugs. Her grades plummeted. She stopped going to school regularly. And then...
I didn't care, because I was so lost in drugs. I was like, who cares? You know, I could always sell drugs and, you know, live my life like this. Who cares?
She used drugs. She sold drugs. She left home. Eventually, she hit rock bottom.
I walked home. I don't know how many miles I walked. I walked because I didn't have money to take the bus. But I walked home. It took me like maybe 2 hours to walk. And I knocked on the door and I was like, Mom, I need help.
To get her life back on track, Ingrid made a decision.
I started hanging out with like positive people, and I would listen to them like, oh, well, I'm going to college, and I just bought me this. I just bought me a car. I just bought me this. I'm like, wait a minute, I want those. I want a car. I want this. I want that. How do I get that? And you know, I realized that I have to go to school, and I realized that once you get out of high school, pizzas don't deliver themselves. You know, there's no way that you could get out of high school. And yeah, maybe you could find a job flipping burgers. Maybe, yeah, you could find a job doing this and that. But, I mean, it's not going to be enough.
Weighing those kinds of things and looking just a couple steps ahead. You don't have to look ahead till you're, you know, way old, way adult, but just look into just the next step. You're in high school now. What are you doing after high school? What's going to come after that?
Using drugs can also get you into trouble with the law. Andrew can tell you all about the legal risks of drugs. He abused marijuana and prescription drugs from age 13 to 19.
You get high and your brain doesn't function the way it would when you're sober. You do things that you would never ever do when you're sober. You know, I mean, I would never steal from anybody, but when I would get high, I mean, it came naturally.
Then he started illegally selling prescription pills. He was caught when his friend crashed the car they were in, and police arrived at the scene.
I stumbled out of the car, pills all over the place. I remember grabbing some pills and trying to throw them in the woods.
Andrew was arrested and faced a prison sentence.
I mean, it was all my charges. I went to see my attorney for the first time, and he told me that you're looking at 5 to 10 years, you know. And for the first time in my life, I mean, I kind of saw my freedom just disappear. I mean, it just kind of hit me, 5 to 10 years. I mean, that's a good part of your life gone.
Luckily, the judge gave Andrew another option. Instead of prison, he went to drug court. That meant daily therapy sessions, weekly meetings with the judge, and numerous random drug tests. Any slip-up, and Andrew would land in jail.
It is very structured, and it is tough. Some of the participants have come to me and said that not using drugs and alcohol is actually the easy part. We hold them fully responsible. They have to be on time. If you're not on time, you get a consequence. They're drug screened sometimes 5-6 times a week.
Andrew graduated from drug court, and he's been clean and sober now for 2 years.
Before I couldn't figure out how to live my life, you know, and now I'm trying to figure out what to do with my life. And it's a pretty good problem to have, you know.
I lost my cars, I lost my house, I lost my family, I lost my friends, my job, school. I lost everything, and that did not bother me.
Drugs almost destroyed Megan's life. From pot to cocaine to LSD, Megan's drug use escalated. Then she tried crystal meth. She quickly became addicted, dropped out of school, and went broke.
I was down to 95 pounds. My hair was falling out. My nails had become so brittle that they were peeling off my fingers. Your skin starts falling off. It's a horrible, horrible drug. It's the worst drug that I've ever done, and it's the drug that ended up taking almost my life and almost everything from me.
Megan may have thought she was only going to try crystal meth one time, but one became 2, then dozens, then hundreds of times. Eventually, she ended up smoking it for a constant high.
I guess when I hit rock bottom probably would be the first time I smoked it, because I didn't realize then that was the end of it. When I smoked it, I never put it down. So from then on was pretty much a year and a half, 2 years of using solid. When my family let me go, I said goodbye, and I was fine with it until I didn't have any food and I couldn't shower, and my mom said I couldn't come into her house. That was what got me into rehab, but I wouldn't understand a rock bottom at that point. I didn't understand bottom anymore.
Megan finally realized that all of those risks of drug use had become her reality. She had to stop to resume any semblance of a normal life.
I think you have to come to the point where you have to want it for yourself, and the people in your life can't want it for you.
Well, one of the things you have to do is understand that you're going to pay the price. Not your friend, not your friend's friend, not everybody else is doing. And you have to ask yourself, and what am I doing? Is it worth what I may end up getting into in terms of the trouble? Before you make a choice, stop, think, and listen. Very simple concept. Stop, think about it, and listen to what others are saying about it.
What will the future bring? Megan realizes there's no way to know for sure. What is certain right now is she's drug-free.
I'm like 1 in a million. You know, there's not a lot of people that make it off meth.
And she has a message to anyone who's using drugs or considering using them. Drugs can cost you your physical and emotional well-being, or even your life.
You think about it every day, and it haunts you for the rest of your life.
What would you do to help a friend stop using drugs?